So here we go, part one of the 1-2 punch, Jason. Sадриддин Ахмедов and Stefen Danьo, the trainer of Ahmedov. Mark Ramsey said that the one fear they have is of Ahmedov getting lulled to sleep in this fight. But of course, Ahmedov would prefer to put Danьo to sleep were he to have his choice.
He would be the first man to do so.
And one thing working in Ahmedov's favor here tonight, Jason, a tiny ring. You saw there, Danьo, 2 steps and his back was on the ropes. That can only be a good thing for Ahmedov.
Yeah, and he's no stranger to small rings. He's fought at the Montreal Casino a number of times. There's a tiny ring there as well. It really allows him to do what he does best, which is walk these guys down and impose his will, really. I see a pretty big height differential between the two as well.
Yeah, that was noticeable in the stare down. Danьo does have the advantage when it comes to some measurables.
See Sадриддин looking to close the distance early here. Know that he's looking to kind of feel out his opponent in the first round, look for weaknesses. They don't need him to explode too quickly.
Good left hand there connected from Ahmedov. And that's one of the adjustments that I'm looking for Ahmedov to make in this fight. We've seen him throw a rocket of a right hand, really, all throughout his amateur career and throughout his professional career. And we saw a moment ago, after that right hand, he kind of stepped in with that left hand as well. He didn't just stop, and giving Danьo even more to worry about than just trying to neutralize that big sweeping right hand.
That's right. I also want to see him hide that a little bit, too. Kind of get these guys used to some lighter shots, throw out your jab a little. Don't just go always looking for that big shot in the leadoff, because eventually you guys are going to catch on to those kind of moves too.
A moment ago, Danьo threw a pretty good flurry there. You have to say Danьo looking confident here in the opening round. Of course, the fear, of course, is that Danьo is going to play spoiler. But right now, Danьo isn't just looking to avoid contact. He's seemed pretty confident in letting his combinations run.
Yep, he's engaging first here, trying to counter. Liking what I'm seeing so far. And he definitely looks like he came in great shape as well. You never know with the pandemic, Corey, how guys are going to look. He's looking very good.
Oh, a second warning here for Ahmedov for those shots behind the head. Danьo pleading his case to the official who agrees with him, so Ahmedov's going to have to be careful here. He doesn't want to get into a hole here in the opening round. Good body shot there from Ahmedov.
Ahmedov able to close the distance very quickly and does so in explosive fashion. See some nice defensive skills too. He's really maturing nicely as a young fighter. Only 22 years old. He's turning 23 in 2 days here. But kind of mature beyond his years.
We'll take a look at some of the action from the opening round. Some good body work throughout that round for Ahmedov. There was that big left hand. That was probably the best shot of the round, but there was that flurry from Danьo just to let you know, hey, I'm not just a spoiler here. I am here trying to win and trying to maybe make a surprise entrance into the world rankings, maybe sneak in to the top 15 of a sanctioning body somewhere.
Seconds out. Stop. Time. Timing.
Round 2 underway. A good opening round for both fighters who definitely had their moments. The main storyline, though, really at this point, we can't forget, 2 warnings issued to Ahmedov, so he does have to be careful. We know he likes to throw a sweeping right hand, a chopping right hand. You know, one ruling that doesn't go his way, and he could be in the hole down around effectively with a penalty.
It's tough with a fighter like Danьo too, who employs a lot of upper body movement like that, as he kind of leans over as he's to slip the punches. I don't know how deliberate it is that Sadraddin's hit him behind the head a couple times, but he does have to be careful.
Well, you know, I was thinking the same thing, and there was a sequence at the end of round one where Danьo was on the ropes, and as you mentioned, he was kind of, you know, bending over and slipping to his right at the same time. And it's kind of hard, if you are throwing a right hand, not to hit someone behind the ear or behind the head. So, you know, Akhmedov could be the victim of, you know, some rulings that aren't necessarily going his way, but could be taken in either direction.
That adaptability that you gain from having such an extensive amateur background is huge in those kind of situations, because he's got to think in real time now about changing up the way that he's punching so he doesn't get a point docked.
Well, and a moment ago there, I think we saw a good adjustment from Akhmedov, Jason. We saw Danьo make that same defensive maneuver, and instead of throwing the right hand over the top, Akhmedov comes up the middle with an uppercut, and I think that could be the key for him if Danьo continues to react the same way, especially when he's along the ropes. Good right hand there connects from Danьo.
Yeah, you know, we were worried, Corey, when we were speaking earlier, that Danьo was maybe here just to survive. You're absolutely right. He's here to get some respect and win this fight.
The issue with Danьo when he has stepped up at higher levels has been that these flurries haven't come quite often enough. And so that will be the key for Danьo, is to make Akhmedov shell up and run those combinations in the center of the ring a little bit more frequently. If those happen more often than he finds himself with his back along the ropes, then we have ourselves a serious fight.
You can see that experience as Danьo looks to disrupt Sadraddin's movement here as he comes in.
Well, Danьo, whether he's won this round or not, has done likely what he intended to do, and that's slow the pace of this fight down. A significantly slower pace here in the second than there was in round one. We'll look back at some of the action from round two. And there was that uppercut that I referenced, Jason. Good adjustment from Akhmedov.
Beautiful. Just as he ducks in. You can hear Samuel Decari-Drolet asking for that left hook to the body as a follow-up punch. Punches and bunches is not a problem for Sadraddin. He's very good at mixing them up. You see them working in the corner. Of course, English not the first language of Sadraddin, but he said in boxing you don't need to understand the language to understand what your trainer's saying. And he's absolutely right.
And everyone can understand a left hook to the body, and everyone can be affected by the left hook to the body. And I would imagine that's the strategy here as we move into round three. That Danьo, who is incredibly defensively responsible, is good at pacing himself, not tiring himself out, slowing his opponent down. If you could start hitting him to the body, everything goes out the window.
Yeah, especially since he's going to be looking to take him into the deep rounds. Great point, Corey, last round about slowing the fight down. This is a much slower pace than we're used to seeing out of Sadraddin Ahmedov so far. It's not to say that that's a bad thing. We see a little bit of patience in a young fighter, too.
Yeah, I actually think that Akhmedov is reacting the right way. You know, he's not frenzied in trying to chase Danьo down right now, and I think he understands, and he even said it prior to the fight, that this is the best fighter that I've faced in my pro career. And these are valuable lessons still for Akhmedov. It is important to note that for as many amateur fights as he had, over 250 amateur fights, the 6th Kazakh fighter to ever win a World Junior title. The majority of those happened as a junior. So these experiences that he's getting facing grown men who have been fighting in the pros for quite some time are still
guys like Arslanbek Makhmudov as well. These really high-level young fighters that are just coming up, these prospects, it's hard to get their rounds like this. This is exactly what Mark Ramsey wants.
Akhmedov thinks maybe he can bait Danьо into a little bit of exchange here. Danьo briefly meets him forehead to forehead, but that's what you get. If you're going to try and trade with Akhmedov, he gets popped with an uppercut and another one.
Sадриддин landing some nice shots in this round so far. This is the kind of fight Sадриддин wants. He's a consummate entertainer. We've seen him do a little alley shuffle here and there in his past fights. He really wants to give the fans their money's worth. And that was kind of the concern with a guy like Danьo. Will it frustrate Sадриддин a little bit too much down the stretch? But so far, this is a very good round for him.
Good left hook to the body.
Exactly as Dekari was asking in the corner.
And Akhmedov didn't just stop there. He followed it up with a left uppercut that came right up the middle. Final 10 seconds of round 3. And you'd have to think that Akhmedov really finding his groove here in the 3rd frame.
Looks like he's having fun in there right now. We can see him on the inside, gets him off balance just a little bit. We're looking for that left hook downstairs that we saw. That nice up jab straight in, right hand. And there. Great combination punching, mixing it up upstairs and downstairs. That's what Dekari and Ramsey want to see. Taking some deep breaths in that high altitude of Mexico. They only arrived Tuesday night. Not a lot of time to acclimate.
Round 4 underway. Sадриддин Ahmedov, Stefen Danьo here in our co-feature. Corey Erdman and Jason Tufexis calling the action from our Montreal studios. The action is in Cuernavaca, Mexico, where Jason, as you mentioned, at altitude, the fighters trying their best to acclimate on short notice. Guys like Akhmedov have only been here for a few days. Guys like Stephen Butler, whom...
Yeah, he's a sneaky technician.
And Danьo is hard to hit clean. He's fairly easy relatively to put gloves on, but not all of those shots are going to have an impact. And Danьo, you know, that shot seems to maybe have impacted him a little bit, but we haven't really seen him bothered by too many shots here, even when Akhmedov has been landing hard shots.
No, that's exactly what Castillo Clayton found in his fight. It was very difficult to connect clean. He rolls just enough, he angles just enough to take a little steam off those shots throughout the fight. You could find him, but it's difficult to hit him clean and hurt him. Probably one of the main reasons he's never been stopped.
Danьo's fought his career between 147 and 154. Around 2018 or so, he made a decision to move up to 154 full time and hasn't turned back.
Speaking with Sam Dekari this week about how 154 is going for Sадриддин. Like we said, he's a very thick fighter. He's only 5'8", but he's very thick. They figure he probably has another year at junior middleweight before he will eventually have to transition up. Again, only 22 years old.
Still growing into his body, still finding out his true strengths as a fighter as well.
Even Mark Ramsey's finding out his true strengths as a fighter. That was one of the things, speaking to Mark. He says he's not even sure of his full potential, in a good way. He doesn't even know how far along this guy might be able to get. He sees so much talent in him. Danьo coming in with his own WBA Continental Super Welterweight title and the vacant WBC Francophone title, as well as the NABF. We can say what we want as fans about the different belts and different governing bodies, but these things mean a lot to these fighters, and it really means a lot to the future of these fighters, because a win here for Sадриддин Ахмедов might get him into that top 15, might edge him into some of these sanctioning bodies, so it is very important.
Yeah, it's less about the belts and more about what exactly they trigger in the respective rankings. But right now,
that shot caught his attention. It looks like his legs are a little loopy there after that shot.
Ahmedov looking for a counter left hook there. Maybe just grazed the chin of Danьo. Ahmedov's got a different look in his eye right now.
He does. He's got that hunter look, moving in for the kill. We've seen it before. He's got to be patient here. Absolutely no rush. It's a 10-round fight. But he did seem to hurt Danьo there earlier in this round. Sадриддин is one of those guys who, even in the amateurs, he was mean. He destroyed fighters. He didn't just beat fighters. So it wasn't as much of an ordeal to transition him into pro, and you could see that killer instinct come out. That's something I love to see in a young prospect.
Ahmedov, you saw a moment ago there, just making good use of the free hand. They were tied up, but one hand was free, and he was able to land a pretty good little chopping right hand. Short right hook on the inside.
Yeah, he's only got 11 fights right now, but he's a very wise fighter, and he picks up things very quickly. You know, Mark Ramsey has told me that there's times where he sees him in the gym, in the ring, doing something that he hasn't even taught him yet, thinking, how did he do that? But he watches and he picks up. Since he was a kid, he's been watching fighters and trying to take the best.
Wow. I want you to hit smart. I know that. But I don't know. Thank you very much.
Take a look back at some of the action from round 5. There's that big chopping right hand landing from Ahmedov. That's a shot that got him in a little bit of trouble in the first round, but now seems to be landing in a way that is deemed appropriate by the officials.
Yeah. I mean, like we talked about, Corey, it's somewhat
it's a judgment call.
Yeah. High guard from Sадриддин as he looks to close that distance again early in this round number 6, second half of the fight. As we mentioned before, he's gone the distance one time. That was his fight in Kazakhstan. His last fight ended in explosive fashion in the 7th round. And so far, Corey, I don't see all too much ring rust after over a year out of the ring.
No, and he's in there against an opponent who, as we mentioned, fights at a pace that's easy to keep up with. And that's why a fighter like Danьo was chosen by the team behind Ahmedov. Mark Ramsey said he wouldn't mind it if Ahmedov spent the next year fighting guys like Danьo in order to get that experience.
Yeah, there's no rush when you have a prospect this young with this much potential. I mean, I know that they're looking to position him into some big fights by the end of next year, but there's definitely a progression that needs to take place in any fighter. We've seen it time and again where a fighter gets rushed beyond his capabilities, and I think they're doing a good job so far. Of course, all things considered with the pandemic, would have been nice if he could have gotten into the ring another 4 times in 2020, but let's see here. We're only in January. He's back in. You know, they're looking to hopefully fight him one more time before Ramadan, which is, I believe, coming up around May. But his wife is also pregnant, about to have their first child in just a month, so you never know. The lack of sleep has an effect.
Yes. Good right hand shot. Connects there from Akhmedov. Danьo kind of falling off balance there. That may have been a footwork issue. And there's another right hand.
Great.
And Danьo now retreating to the ropes on his own volition. He may be hurt. I think he is, Jason.
Dick Harry called a round 6 or 7 stoppage when we were talking. I mean, this looks like that's the direction this is going. Danьo hoping to survive, but he's got another 30 seconds here.
Good body shot there from Akhmedov, and you can see the breath that Danьo takes, trying to inhale.
He's questioning if he should take a knee, it looked like at one point even. That body shot really hurt him.
He's looking for any extra air at altitude here in Cuernavaca, as Akhmedov just suffocating him with power shots in the final 10 seconds. Danьo trying to survive, in more trouble than we've ever seen him in his pro career.
Best round of the fight by Sадриддин Ахмедов thus far.
Very good, Sадриддин. See? Scoreless? Yeah. Every time you go with scoreless, it's easy. I like when you move his hand. When this guy has time defense in hand. Okay? Now I want to see more double McAvoy. Yes. I want McAvoy. Yes. You hurt him to the body. Now when this guy hurt, I want you to open and to go for kill.
Really mixing up his shots nicely, Corey.
And there was the one that really started the trouble for Danьo.
Oh, I feel that here, however many thousands of kilometers or miles away. That was a perfectly placed body shot.
A good right hand right out of the gate from Danьo. Well, Akhmedov can't get too reckless here, but at the same time, Danьo is just 1 minute removed from being in serious trouble. And you wonder if Akhmedov can...
And, you know, he's definitely done his darndest so far this fight. There's no sparring session.
And that's a great point, because all fighters who step in the ring have a great deal of self-belief, or they wouldn't be there at all. But you know the fighters that we're referring to who kind of turn it off after facing the first real wave of adversity in a fight.
Yep.
And Danьo is not a guy who has responded that way. He's not winning this round, but he didn't fold over when he could have after that 6th round.
Not at all.
Another round likely in the bank for Akhmedov, but a courageous effort from Stefen Danьo to bounce back.
Yeah, full credit to Danьo so far. He took some really big shots throughout this fight, and still comes out, like you said, at the beginning of every round, ready to throw.
Very good, okay? Keep going. But when you hurt him, I want you to finish it. Every round you hurt him. Every round you hurt his side. You hurt body and head. Keep working body, okay? Keep working body, finish head. Okay? When you're inside, grab corpus. Please.
We'll look back at the 7th round here, which was a better round for Stefen Danьo, but still a lot of good stuff coming from Sадриддин Ахмедов as we enter the 8th round here in this 10-round co-feature.
Almost caught him with that same shot downstairs in that last round. It sounds like Sam Dekary-Drolet really wants him to go for the kill in this round. If he sees him hurt, he says go and finish him. Round 8 here, I think that's a perfect time. He's got his experience, he's got his rounds in, shaking off whatever rust there is. Now it's time to do what he came here to do. Will Danьo let him do that? That's the question.
Well, what we've seen, especially after the 7th round, is that even if Akhmedov is able to do that, it isn't going to be because Danьo just stopped throwing.
No.
And it's interesting that Danьo is more active now after being hurt than we saw him in the early going. It's almost as if being hurt and being in a little bit of trouble has triggered almost a better fighter in Danьo at this point.
We saw a little bit of that with Felix Cash as well. He came back after getting hurt badly early, and it seemed to kind of light a fire under him, and we see that here too. Just an absolutely perfect opponent for Sadraddin here. And you know, Danьo's no big puncher. Very technically sound, of course, like we talked about. This is perfect for Sadraddin to be able to employ what he's been working on in the gym here. Can see just a little shade of Canelo in there and some of that upper body movement. He's a huge fan of Canelo, despite, of course, the animosity between him and his countryman Triple G. But he's always been a big fan of Canelo. He wants to fight him one day.
Well, it is interesting seeing those kind of those offensive ticks and the obvious genesis of them in this younger generation of fighters. In our opening fight with Christopher Guerrero, we talked about the shoulder roll. A lot of fighters use that shoulder roll. You mentioned in Akhmedov, you see little bits of Canelo. You could also see at times with how he places that left hook, he kind of wraps it around. There's a little bit of Triple G, and it makes sense. These are the guys that these fighters grew up watching. That when they were amateurs, that's who they were watching to extract things from, to form their own image as fighters. Final 10 seconds here of round 8.
Danьo managed to slow the pace down.
He's weathered the storm, yeah. Oh, big right hand there from Akhmedov, and Danьo manages to take that. We'll take a listen to the corner of Akhmedov. Right hand from Stefen Danьo, who has started to fire back with a little more frequency. Round 9 underway. Sадриддин Ахмедов, 11-0, 10 knockouts, looking for win number 12. His first appearance in over a year, taking on Stefen Danьo, who is the godson of the great Azuma Nelson, the International Boxing Hall of Famer. So big shoes to fill there. I mean,
you know, Corey, as Canadian boxing fans, we're lucky to have talent like Sадриддин Ахмедов and some of his fellow Kazakh fighters that Eye of the Tiger has signed, a couple of really talented Russians as well, and guys like Artem Oganessian and Arslanbek Makhmudov. It's really fantastic, and it kind of revitalized the Canadian scene, just like Bute did, looking to capitalize on that.
Well, Danьo, in his own small way, is looking to do the very same thing in his homeland of Holland, where there hasn't been a big footprint of boxing. Obviously, a tremendous kickboxing nation. However, Danьo has started both a management and promotional company and is trying to mentor.
To try to be the first man to stop Stefen Danьo here. The pace of the fight is definitely slowed.
Yeah, it's a tougher task than maybe he would have expected at the end of round 6. And You know, I do want to correct myself. That wasn't the first time we've seen Danьo hurt before. I think I said that in the moment. As you mentioned, Felix Catch had him in a bit of trouble. I would think that Akhmedov had him maybe in a little bit more trouble, you know, especially where it was in the fight, looking in the second half of the fight. He's wearing down. But Danьo, even if he's not winning these rounds, and I would believe that he's not, Akhmedov has taken almost every round, the better version of Danьo has appeared since being hurt. 10 seconds here of the 9th round. Danьo tries to flurry off the ropes.
Making Akhmedov miss there at the end of the round.
A miss and making him work. And enter the 10th and final round as we listen in once again.
Can you finish strong? I want you to not break that. Okay? I want you to finish strong. Do big show. Big drama show. Okay? Jab pravaya. Jab pravaya. Jab pravaya. Fint. Back away. You understand? Yes, you fint. And you go back away. Okay?
I know they've been asking for that feint in training. That's something that they've been working on a lot. Here is Samuel Dikari asking for it again in the final round. Got to be a little sneaky with that power.
Come on, man. Please. Last round.
10th and final round here between Sадриддин Ахмедов and Stefen Danьo. Akhmedov said he expected for this to be the toughest test of his career. Akhmedov and his camp wanted to see him get this kind of experience and maybe see him get some rounds. They thought maybe he would stop Danьo in the mid to late rounds, but here they are getting valuable experience in the 10th.
Ultimately, Corey, personally, I feel like experience is more valuable than knockouts for a young prospect. I know obviously you want to see the flashy record, but this is the kind of stuff that they've been waiting for his whole career to be able to go through, and it's a really good learning experience for Sадриддин in here. Nice shot.
Couple good right hands there, connect by Danьo. There's a good left hook. Akhmedov turning up the intensity here with 2 minutes remaining in the fight.
Danьo goading him on a little bit. Seems to feel confident in his ability to slip those shots, but he is still eating some big ones.
Akhmedov finding Danьo with that left hook almost more often than he's finding him with that right hand, which has really been his bread and butter to this point in the pros. But Danьo, very good at slipping out of the way of that shot, but Akhmedov has been well-trained, knows that's coming, and has been bringing the left hook behind it.
That's right.
When he's had his best moments in this fight.
That ability to adapt in real time, that's such an important skill for a young fighter to have. Moving his glove out of the way. A lot of kind of veteran tricks that Akhmedov employs for such a young guy. A little bit of a phone booth here. The final minute of the fight.
Akhmedov, you get the sense that he is desperately hunting for this knockout. Kind of letting technique go out the window here. He's just leaning on his power. Danьo hits the canvas, but that will be a rule to slip.
Less than 30 seconds left. As we know, Corey, when you're searching for the knockout, sometimes it's the hardest for it to come.
It's not hard to find. Excuse me, it's extremely hard to find against this man.
Yeah.
Stefen Danьo. 10 seconds remaining.
Akhmedov taking some deep breaths of his own. He threw a lot of punches in this fight.
And Danьo will go the distance again, and Akhmedov see some of his frantic hunt for a knockout here as we look back at the 10th round.
He caught him with some nice shots in that frantic hunt, but Danьo just great chin on him. Again, he's able to just roll his way out of the power a lot of the time.
A great chin and great recuperative abilities as
yes.
well. Because there were even moments in this round where you thought, oh, wow, I mean, he's starting to weather. He's eating some flush shots. And then he finds a way to bide enough time to get out of trouble.
Akhmedov looks a little bit disappointed. I mean, he's got nothing to be ashamed of in that performance. It's a beautiful performance. To me, he won every round or close to it.
And a good piece of matchmaking to me as well.
Yep. Again, especially a guy who's used to, I mean, if you have 250-plus amateur fights, you're fighting often. When you're fighting 5 times a year as a pro in your first year, you're fighting often. To take an entire 13, 14 months off is huge for a young fighter like this. So absolutely nothing to be ashamed of here for young Sадриддин.
You know, it's tempting as a promoter when you have an 11-0 fighter, when it's still acceptable to put in opponents that he could easily knock out. You can do that, and it's tempting. You get the highlight reel, you get headlines out of it, but if you're trying to develop a fighter, and if you have a guy in Akhmedov who you think you're actually going to fast track, those fights aren't doing him any good at this point. But a fight against a guy like Stefen Danьo will do far more. Will there be clips on Twitter of this fight tomorrow? Maybe not. But I think that this is a tremendous learning experience and much more valuable than Akhmedov just coming over to Mexico and just starching someone in a handful of rounds.
This is an investment that they believe in. And like Mark Ramsey said, you got a year of Stefen Danьo's ahead of you until you can get into that position to contend for a title. Very valuable rounds for Sадриддин Ахмедов.
And the reality is, too, for a guy like Akhmedov, when you do move up into the even higher levels, into the world levels, they're Stefen Danьo, but they can also hurt you.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly,
they have everything that Stefen Danьo has, but they're also going to put the pressure on you as well. So you have to learn how to deal with that defensive prowess before you can worry about the more threatening fighters. Danьo and Akhmedov there with a gentlemanly embrace a moment ago. Danьo seems, at least from what I can tell, kind of resigned to what the result is here tonight.
Yeah. I don't think we're expecting any drama here in the
We're
scorecards.
Let's send it down to the center of the ring to make this one official. So Sадриддин Ахмедов improves to 12-0 in his professional career, and as you can see, picks up a